everyone, and welcome to the Australian Herpetoculture podcast. I'm your host, Jason.
And I'm your co-host, Luke.
How you going, mate?
Yeah, good, dude, good. Another day in paradise.
Yeah, I know.
What about yourself?
Same old, mate. Back to work and, wish I was still off. So I could set up a few more enclosures. And
I know what you mean. I'm getting really jealous of my wife at the moment because she's sitting back getting the government paycheck. She's been stood down a bit more and she's earning more cash than she was before and having a holiday.
Funny, isn't it?
And yet I go in a day.
Yeah, I think a few blokes at work were doing the same. They got, a little bit off and then they got the government thing, a couple of days to work like a day or two, and they ended up winning more money. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Funny how it works like that.
Exactly.
No, I got started on your background yesterday.
Yeah, that picture looked unreal. Keen to see that.
Still needs a bit of tweaking, but the wind was absolutely howling up there, so I couldn't get the soldering iron hot enough.
Oh, yeah. It cooled down too much.
Yeah. I kept trying to work it, but it just wasn't happening. I was like, I'm going to have to come back to this on a different day, but at least I got the panels all glued together.
Yeah, yep.
So that was a solid
that's fair enough. No, it looks good. I can't wait for that, eh?
Yeah. I was saying to Cam earlier tonight, as in Cam's Custom Backgrounds Cam. He's working on a background for me for my green tree python enclosure, and I'm working on a background for you. So it's just kind of going around. It's funny how it works. Funny. Oh, yeah.
No, he sent me a picture of that too. That's coming out real good.
Yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah.
Did you get any more books in the mail this week?
I'd be lying if I said no.
Standard story for you.
No, I got quite a few actually.
Big order.
Yeah, I think it was like 6 books or something.
Oh,
they were all like
good week.
Yeah, no, it was good. They were on sale. Like they were anywhere from $10 to $30 each book.
That's not bad when you're paying that sort of price. You can actually get away with buying a few in one hit. Yeah,
no, Scott sent me that. I think he sent it to you as well, the sale it was on at Andrew Isles Natural Books, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I just saw a bunch and I was like, I've got to get those. So I wrapped up a few of those and, the postie's probably going to bring me a few more pretty soon. So
I keep just spending money on animal upgrades myself, so don't have the money for the book just there.
I don't have much going on with the animal upgrades at the moment, so...
I ended up actually starting to set up that lizard pit in my courtyard.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I bought a very cheap garden bed off eBay. It was probably, I think it was about $60 or $80 or something like that. But it has a million screws to put it together, so I start to spend a lot of time doing little nuts and bolts up and stuff. But no, it was good. It's basically just needing a lid and it's done.
Yeah, beautiful. So it turned out all right.
Yeah, I've got all the materials there too. It's just taking the time to actually cut a lid and, screw all the mesh and stuff together and get it into place. But then I can take that Cunningham's and the blotch blue tongue up there. So it's a couple less animals. And actually tonight I started taking apart Loki's enclosure and starting to tear out all of his substrate and get a few logs out of there and stuff. He has no idea what's going on. But
nah.
Yeah, that's the plan this weekend is to move him.
Oh, that'd be fun. Nice heavy tank. You'll need a hand with that one. What's it like without all the water in it? It's not too bad, or?
Oh, it would just be a plywood box without the water in it. But it's still got the glass. It's still got the glass aquarium in there, which would weigh a fair whack. But this whole enclosure, like I'm going to have to tear it down to panels. So, and that's just because, well, you'd know from when you came over that little while ago or whatever. But that hallway, there's that sharp right-hand angle at the end of it.
Into the other room,
Yeah, there's no way I'm getting a 2.1 meter enclosure around that. So
yeah, didn't even think of that. And I saw your video the other day of your hopping mice, mate.
Yeah, you got a little bit of a sneak peek. Yeah, I'm absolutely in love with them. Hey, I was actually just watching them on the camera earlier. Just seeing what they were up to. Had the infrared on it, and you can see their little eyes just bugging around, bouncing around the enclosure. But
yeah, they're unreal, those things. I watched the video. I'm like, oh man, trying to work out if I could fit them in.
They honestly, like, for a little native mouse, I didn't think I'd be so infatuated with them, but they are really cool. Really, really cool.
Right.
I even managed to pat one of them the other day, so
that's pretty
I didn't think that was actually possible, but he didn't care about it whatsoever. But no, it's pretty cool. And I even threw some crickets in and saw a couple of them eat some crickets and eating bird seeds and all sorts of stuff. So it's good fun.
Yeah, it's a shame we can't keep more stuff, really, I reckon.
Yeah.
There's some awesome little marsupials out there.
Yeah, I'd love to get into some of that stuff, one day. If the laws ever change or whatever, I reckon it'd be pretty cool to have something like
Hopefully it does. Hopefully it kind of comes into line to some of the other states.
Yeah. I mean, time will tell, right? Hopefully if there's enough people pushing for it, one day they might actually keel over and do something about it. So
yeah, hopefully.
We might be in our retirement age by then.
Yeah, that's right. Might be over bloody snakes and lizards, and
we'll just have a little potteroo or something instead.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else you want to touch on at all, mate?
No, I think we should bring the guest on, eh?
That sounds good to me.
I'll let you introduce the guest.
Yeah, sounds good. So, guys, tonight we've got Cam Candy from the Sydney Zoo on to have a bit of a chat about all things reptiles and even some raptors and stuff as well, which would be pretty cool. Cam, mate, how you going?
Good, thanks, fellas. How are you?
Good, mate. Good.
Very good. Very good. So thank you so much for coming on the show and taking your time out tonight to, be away from the family for an hour or two.
Thanks heaps for having me on. It's always good to chat to like-minded individuals.
That's it.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good job as far as this goes. We get to just hear all these amazing stories and sit back every Tuesday night and just kind of be bewildered by people's lives and what they get up to on the day-to-day.
Yeah, I like it. I thought that there needed to be some sort of Aussie herp wildlife sort of podcast. There might be others. I'm not really that up with podcasts, but it's really cool to be on one. And I've been listening to some of your past episodes. They're great.
Thanks, awesome. Mate. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I know some of the people, and it's fun to listen to them tell for a while. It's good.
Yeah, I think Mitch put your name up for this as well. He was kind of like, you should really get Cam on. And I was like, why didn't I even think about Cam? Of course Cam should be on this show.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking for a culprit, it's Mitchell Hodgson.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
So, Cam, did you want to just give us a bit of a rundown what kind of got you started into reptiles or wildlife in general? Was it kind of like a passion as a kid, or what kind of drove you into this crazy world?
Yeah, talking about listening to some other episodes, it's interesting to hear what people say with this question because it's not all the same. But I reckon mine was pretty cliche, actually. I was, from as early as I can remember, I was into dinosaurs. And, my parents wheeled me out as a party trick to recite Latin names like Parasaurolophus and stuff like that. And, totally obsessed with it. And once you get a little bit older, you start getting pets and oyster. Then I got fish and birds, and eventually in '97, I got my first reptile license. I was about 12 years old.
Early.
So I'd say I was born like this.
Well, a lot of people are at the end of the day. There's so many similar stories to that. Whether it be dinosaurs or chasing skinks as a kid or whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely chased the skinks, and I remember keeping, weasel skinks and even cyclops, and I'd try to feed everything flies and stuff like that, and try to get plants to grow in fish tanks and all that sort of stuff. And I just let stuff go after 2 days when I realized I didn't know what I was doing. but it was definitely a passion from day one. And it's 96 or 97, I was about 12, got my first reptile license, and started from there.
At the age of 12 to get a reptile license,
that's really
how old
young.
were you when? How old were you when you got yours, Chase?
I think I was like maybe 16, 17, I think, or maybe closer to 18. I think it might have been.
I think I was like 22.
Yeah. It was a hard ask to try and get my mum to give it to me because she was scared of snakes, but I got there in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah. So your parents were obviously pretty cool with it then, Cam? They kind of pushed you in that direction?
Yeah. It wasn't a hard sell. Snakes was a hard sell.
Yeah.
But anything else, so I just started super basic, but as you can imagine, 97, 96 or 97, there wasn't that much available. And what was, like, let's say Womas, that would have been like me asking for a Lamborghini, like it was thousands and thousands of dollars, and it was way, way out of reach, and didn't matter how cool I thought they were.
Yeah.
But so Eastern Blueies, Eastern Snake Necks, Eastern Water Dragon was my first reptile. Which,
That's a cool reptile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about it now, I'm like, why did I get water dragons? you can get some really nice water dragons. I've got one at work, and it's like a deity. It's the coolest water dragon I've ever come across. Like, huge adult male, and it's more chill than some beardies I've come across. But
they're usually quite the opposite, the water dragons.
Yeah. The ones I had, they were no good. No good for handling anyway. But
good for
looking. But even then, I was like pulling plants out of my backyard and trying to get stuff to grow I just had a 6-foot fish tank with a like a big UV tube over the top, and it was like a spotlight or something, hooked like a lamp, sort of dangled up one end. It was kind of real bit shoddy, but I had like live plants growing in there and sand from down the local reserve. Shouldn't have been doing that, but I didn't know that in the late 90s. So basically I just had tried to have bioactive setups, and I didn't really do a lot of handling of the water dragons. And eventually I just chucked them all outside, built a pit that sort of backed onto one of the walls of our house.
Yep.
With like a flip top lid, and then I ended up chucking blueies and turtles and all sorts of stuff in there. It was good.
That's awesome.
So you're doing bioactive before it was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't even know what herping was. I should say I had a mate down the road that got into it at the same time as I did, and I think the way we sort of got into it was a local pet shop had we were into fish. A local pet shop had like a flyer or something about the Australian Herpetoculture Society, because you couldn't buy stuff in a pet shop, and that's how we got into it. I think we may have even had to join. Might have even been a condition. Could be wrong. It was a long time ago. That's I'm 37 now, so it's casting the memory back. But it was cool, and got animals from local breeders, like Andrew Melrose. We're still mates.
Yep. After
all these years. And after that, actually got right into frogs. Kept Chloris, Cerulean, Alex, Baroni, Infrafrenata, and that was all for a few years. And I ended up breeding the white lips, and it was a disaster. I was, however old I was, 13 or something, and 100 baby frogs to feed. I had no idea. It was,
I can imagine.
It was hard enough to get the pinheads and then to get them eating, and they were getting out of things. It was crazy. Yeah, I never did it again. And I literally knew no one. I had no idea who would, even if I wanted to give them away for free. Yeah, but
it's a bit different nowadays. Like, you can just jump on Facebook, post something in a group, and you could probably get rid of them all straight away. But back then, there was nothing.
But I think I just got the internet.
Yeah, and it was dial up. You think the phone ringing in the background, and
it was another decade before I was on Facebook. So I just gave those all away. But that was I got right into it at a real early age, and then sort of in high school, I was this kid that had all these frogs and lizards and stuff in their house, and it was a bit weird, but it's kind of a novelty for people, I think.
Yeah, it would have been back then because, not many people kept stuff back then. Like a lot of people you talk to have the odd bearded dragon, or they might have one snake or something, but back then, no one really kept anything.
Yeah, I did. Apart from my mate down the road and Andrew, I didn't really know anyone. But I started to go to some of the Herp Society meetings and meet a couple of people there. People are still friends with now. Jason Luke and Anthony Tonks, people like that. And I haven't been to a Herp Society meeting went to a couple recently, but before that, I hadn't been to one in a decade or more.
Which Herp Society is that one? Is that the Hawkesbury Herpetoculture Society or
just the Australia? Yeah, AHS.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a member, but I've never been to any of the meetings. It's just a little bit too far to go. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I was going to sign up for a membership, but at the same time, when this whole new wave of COVID thing kind of broke out, I'm like, well, now I'm definitely not getting to a meeting for a while, so I might hold off for another year or so. But I've been meaning to.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah,
it's a good society. It's a good society to be a member of, though, I reckon.
Yeah.
They give you the Red Belly Courier every so often. It's like a little magazine that comes out. I think there's like 7 or 8 editions now, so it's pretty cool. It's like it's a good little book, that one. I enjoy getting that every year.
Yeah,
I did see that they just had a recent edition out of that out as well.
Yeah,
with a green tree on the front.
Yeah. So that's good.
Should have signed up just for that.
Yeah.
Oh, well. So you started out with a whole bunch of frogs and a few water dragons and things. Where'd you kind of progress from there? Like, did you end up kind of going into that spiral and getting a whole bunch of animals and having your parents yell at you for having all these things running around the place?
Well, to be honest, I got right into frogs, and I had, like I said, I had like 4 or 5 species at one stage, and I had pretty much all the reptiles I had outside. I ended up building a much bigger pond, and just people I knew started giving me turtles. Like, they got a license and got a turtle, and then they didn't want it, and so I was ending up with a bit of stuff, but nothing crazy. And by that stage, I was sort of 15, 16, and I, to be honest, I kind of lost interest. Started thinking about
girls,
thinking about other things.
As you do.
Yeah. I guess that's the thing with getting into it heaps young. I didn't really know anyone that was doing it. Like, I would go what you'd call herping by myself. I didn't know what it was called, but I'd go out looking for stuff, but every now and then. But yeah, as I got older into my teens and then later teens, I ended up just moving a lot of stuff on to just people I knew. And then I finished high school and had no idea what to do because I wasn't really, didn't leave and do a trade, and wasn't good enough to do biology or something like that. I wish I'd studied ecology or zoology or something like that, but there was no way I was getting into that. didn't have the marks. Sounds crazy now, because if I did it now, I'd probably be fine, but back then I just didn't have the concentration. Didn't get the marks, and finished school, and my parents pushed me into not push, but said, you got to do something. And I was working in restaurants a lot, and so it was either do a chef apprenticeship or go to uni and do something you don't need good marks for. So I didn't want to be a chef as much as I, enjoyed working in restaurants. It's a bit of a crazy lifestyle when you're 17, 18, but I ended up going to uni and doing a creative arts degree, just doing visual art and graphic design. because you didn't even really need any marks. You just needed a half decent portfolio. So got in for that, and went to uni for 3 years straight out of high school. And this is probably going to lead into another sort of question, but finished uni and then didn't know what to do, couldn't get jobs, had no idea about how to get a job as a graphic designer, much less as an artist. Like I'm no artist, but ended up going overseas for a while and just randomly volunteered on an archaeology dig.
Wow.
That's pretty
It's not my, it was mad. Not my thing, but I think someone I knew from uni just said, "Do you want to go over to Cyprus and do this thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, sounds fun."
Yeah.
And
just casually.
yeah, I just finished uni and I had no idea what I was still only, like 22, something. I was still super young. And anyway, it turns out like Cyprus is either rural or semi-rural, like not a lot going on there. And we stayed with this archaeology team in an abandoned hotel where they'd got running water and electricity hooked up the week before and done a real basic clean, which was totally fine with me. Like, it was adventurous, it was cool. But when I got there, the place was like full of reptiles, heaps of geckos, snakes, tarantulas, even got a Mediterranean chameleon.
Wow.
So all this stuff that had been in my head for the last decade was sort of coming up to the front. Yeah, because people are going, "What's this?" I'm like, "Oh, it's this and it's that," and no, don't worry about that. It's not venomous. And then on the dig, they were digging up accidentally, but they were pretty often digging up ruminating snakes.
Wow.
And I'd get called over to move them on. Anyway, fast forward for a couple of months after that, I got back home and like, fuck this, I'm not doing I'm not working in an office doing graphic design. No offense to people that do, like it's fun. I just
wasn't your thing.
I didn't have the drive to do it, so I got just an absolutely awful job in a foreign currency. Those foreign currency things at the airports.
Like the little booths.
Yeah.
Like a little box. It was like literally. I don't know if people do this anymore, but it was out of a newspaper opening the classifieds and like circling
the jobs and
possible jobs like that require no experience and no skills. So I did that and then just ended up volunteering at Taronga in reptile section and down at Symbiote with reptiles and did Cert 2 animal studies, just the most basic sort of entry-level animal care sort of course. And about 6 or 7 months later, got a casual job at Taronga. I think all of those guys are still there. Michael and Adam and Stuart and all those Dean, all still there. They were all there when I started as casual and then told Symbiote I can't volunteer anymore, and they said, "Oh, we'll give you a full-time job if you come down." And
wow.
So I took it.
Yeah.
Everyone thought I was crazy leaving
Taronga
for that, but at the time I just thought like full-time job, I need that badly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steady income if you do have something full-time, and especially if it's something that you like doing.
Yeah.
And they don't come around too often too in the zoo industry.
Yeah.
No. And I think starting it slightly later, like not as ironically, I actually did work experience at Symbiote when I was about 15 and I hated it.
Went full circle.
Absolutely hated it. But it was different. This was nearly 10 years later and had hardly any reptiles back then. It was just like working on a farm. Like it was hard work in winter. Yeah, it was hard work. 10 years later, it was still very hard work working there. It's a really advanced park now. It's
I don't think I've ever been to Symbio.
It's been about 10 years since I was there, like since I worked there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an awesome park. And it was awesome when I worked there. But it was a baptism of fire into the zoo world, which I don't regret at all. Very hard work, but nothing will ever be harder in terms of jobs. starting with that.
Do you just want to give our listeners a little bit of insight as to where Symbio is actually located and you know what was kind of there at that time when you did go through that baptism of fire?
Yeah, so it's in Helensburgh, which people don't know that it's basically the southern end of the Royal National Park. Kind of, it's a bit before Wollongong. Beautiful area. So the park then was when I started, probably strictly natives then. It's really diversified into exotics and just the enclosure design and everything has just gone from strength to strength over the years. But when I was there, it was still great. It was just a really small team, so I was sort of heading up birds and reptiles.
Yeah.
Purely because they couldn't employ that many keepers. So that was kind of my introduction to birds. And the boss, what would you call him? Back then he was the manager, I guess, Matt. We were about the same age and both pretty keen on birds and herps, and it was just kind of like mates working on stuff.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. But the good thing about it is I made like thousands of mistakes, so many, with reptiles, and it was a good way, nothing crazy, but just a really good way to learn. I'm trying to make things work with, no budgets, and when it was a lot harder to get supplies back then, so trying to get things to work and so the best thing for the animals was it was constantly challenging, but just a great way to learn.
Especially back then, you probably wouldn't have had so much internet research out there, and there's no Google care sheet sort of thing like that. So I'd imagine you would have been kind of learning as you go, really.
Yeah, it was learning from books mostly, just trying to find relevant reptile books. Talking to more experienced people that would come in and help us out, visiting other parks. Like, it's a long time ago now, but we'd go up to Featherdale, go up to the reptile park, had good relationships with those guys. Just sharing knowledge, which is 100% still how we operate now. Like me personally, I've been doing it for 15, 16 years, and I still think I'm maybe not a beginner, but still got so much to learn. And there's always so many people out there, that, especially private keepers, that have just got so much knowledge and novel ways of approaching things. Like Mitch, for example, just perhaps hasn't been at it as long as I have, but he would know little dragons way better than I would. But I love getting to know people and getting to know how they approach things. That's how I know Mitch, I just contacted him.
It's kind of part of the good thing about the hobby too, is that aspect as well, chatting to other people that know more about other things than you, and it expands your knowledge as well, just having conversations with people. So
I love it.
Everyone's got that little niche and their little segment of the hobby as well. Like it's kind of crazy. Jason and I are doing this, and like we're picking up little tidbits as we go off all the keepers and all the, all the people that come on this podcast. It's like, oh, that's a great idea. We should employ this or try this, or it starts changing our way of thinking.
You guys would be killing it in this space. You're going to be gurus.
Oh,
Get all the tips from
bluffing our way through.
Yeah,
every corner of Australia.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's definitely good chatting to some of the people we've chatted to. So it's kind of lucky in a way.
Yeah, sure, man.
So
where did you go from Symbio?
Well, that was how I got my start. Like, I was there for about 5 years. Like I said, I was essentially employed as a reptile keeper in the beginning, and then said, "Oh, you got to do birds as well, if that's all right." I was like, "Yeah, sweet." We did have a couple of raptors back then. I don't think they have so much anymore. I think they got a couple of wedgies still. But my thing when I signed up for Symbio as a volunteer was like a little form and said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to work with crocs, elapids, and raptors." and they're like, "No."
At least you're right to the point.
Yeah, and I was like, but they took me on anyway, and over the years we did a bit of raptor works, especially with wedgies. So we got to know the two wedgies there really well. Didn't do really any elapid stuff there. They didn't keep elapids at the time. They do now. But it was early 20s. I was doing a little bit of snake catching then, so I did a few courses and would catch things on park and do a little bit of like wires stuff as well back in the day. Any sort of snake rehab stuff. Anyway, after that for 5 years, I would have been about 26 or something like that. Basically wanted to get away from Sydney, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I just applied for jobs, all over the world, really, all over Australia, NZ. I think I applied for one in the Middle East.
Wow.
And I was really surprised. Like, plenty were coming through. But
wow.
Sort of, it must have just been the right time. But almost ended up at Cairns Trop, which is no longer around now. It's all Hartleys.
Yeah.
Then decided not to go there. Part of the reason was I was reasonably experienced there, like 5 years, and I was still on like 32K, which is it's not great, not very much, but that's how it is on the East Coast. Then I was looking at a experienced reptile keeper at Australia Zoo, and I thought, that's it, that's me, I'm going to go. And then a job I applied for in Alice Springs at the Desert Park came through at the same time, and they just twisted my arm, basically. Said, "Come here instead." And I think I just went there because, like, East Coast is all, like, I knew people and it was relatively similar. Alice Springs was, may as well have been overseas as far as I was concerned. I'd never been there. And just packed up my Land Cruiser and drove out like within a week. And it was the best decision ever.
Yeah, I can't
it's
imagine.
A beautiful little park out there too.
Yeah,
I've personally never been there.
It's one of the, like, I'm obviously biased, but I don't work there anymore. But it's my favourite park in the country that I've been to. It's definitely my style of zoos and wildlife parks. Like, my view of wildlife parks has changed a lot over the years from when I started, and desert park is probably my favorite way to approach that industry. I still really believe in the industry and what it has to offer, but I think that kind of, if you want to call it like a biopark, is my I feel like that for me is the pinnacle, where it's like, did you go there, Luke?
Yeah, I went there.
Yeah.
I made sure to stop in.
Yeah, nice. So it's an award-winning botanic garden as well as a wildlife park. Like it's just the best. Like that's actually what got me into plants, was just working so closely because we had a zoology team of say a dozen people, and then there was a nursery/horticulture team which was maybe another half dozen people, and just people obsessed with plants. And I'd never, I had thought about it a bit in previous work, but not to the level that these guys did, and it totally changed my view of keeping. At that stage as well, like when I left Sydney, I had got back into keeping once I'd started working as a reptile keeper. So I was I'd finally started keeping snakes. Nothing crazy, just mostly pythons, because I was rehabbing the odd elapid. But then I just moved everything on when I left New South Wales. But then working in the desert park was it's crazy. Like, we were so strict about enclosure design. You'd know, Luke, that it was broken up broadly into desert rivers, sand country, and woodland. So if we had whether it was bird, herp, mammal, whatever, let's say herp, we had a herp exhibit in sand country, you couldn't put, say, a piece of river red gum browse, like a branch, in there.
Wow.
Someone would pull you up and go, hey, it's got to be desert bloodwood or some mulga or nothing.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was totally my thing to have that level of detail to exhibit design. So fun. And then that's actually what sort of spurred me on to start herping and birding, to be honest, more out in the field after that sort of approach. Because before, I didn't really fully know that people went out herping. Like, I hadn't got onto it that much. But then out there, it's just like a wonderland. So, and I didn't know anyone either. So I just started going out with work people, and road cruising in Central Australia is just amazing. But it's not the only way I like to do it. If I have a choice, I prefer to just walk off track and see what's around.
Yeah. So what was it like actually living out in Alice? Because it's not exactly like, there's not a hell of a lot of people there, really.
Yeah, so I was there for 7 years. Moved there in 2012. Didn't know anyone. Rented a room from a bloke that worked at the desert park that had a spare room, and from there, to be honest, I moved there as a single person, and I just went out all the time. So there was a period where I didn't do that much herping, to be honest. It was valuable time, but I was always tired. But that was good. Like, I made friends for life there. I got married there. I had my daughter there. It's home for me as far as that goes. And we've actually been trying to go back and visit recently, and have unfortunately had those plans thwarted multiple times.
Unfortunately.
But it is what it is. But yeah, living out there, after I'd been there for, sort of, 3 years or so, you realise that a lot of people coming to Alice are from Sydney and Melbourne, heaps of public servants, heaps of emergency hospital work, that sort of thing, teachers, social work. There's a ton of work there, but I guess it attracts certain people. And yeah, I just ended up getting really sort of really good foundation of friends. But it obviously didn't work for everyone. So I'd get to know someone for a year and then they'd be like, oh, well, got my job back in Sydney. It's got a promotion or something, or basically the underlying message was I don't want to live here anymore and back to the city for me. But if you don't like the outdoors, I don't know how you would live there, because a lot of the entertainment is drinking and camping.
Yeah,
sounds right up my alley.
Or both at the same time.
Right up my alley.
Just fine. Yeah, no, it's a weird place to live. Like I said, it doesn't suit everybody, but I could still be there quite happily. Desert Park was an amazing place to work, and I'm sure we'll touch on it, but the 7 years I was there, it changed so much in terms of what I was doing. So I was never bored. If I ever got bored, I could go herping or birding, and it's how I got into birding as well. Like I was born a reptile keeper, really. Had never really thought about birds, but living in Central Australia is what tweaked me to birds a bit.
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear that herps are number one and will always be number one. But it's no secret to people that know me that I'm easily distracted and interested in, just everything.
Don't they have a funny name for birders? Isn't it like a tweaker or something like that?
Twitcher.
Yeah,
Tweaker.
that's something else.
He tweaking.
Yeah, I was tweaking more than I was tweaking. I'm not even that up on it, but I think there's a difference between a birder and a twitcher. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I think a twitcher is more like a ticker, like get the binos out, see the rare vagrant species and tick it off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas I think birders are probably more like the bird equivalent of a herper.
Yeah.
As in, like, you want to get photos, you want to see how they behave in the wild and stuff like that. A bit more in depth. That's my understanding.
Well, I can definitely see how you fell in love with that country out there, because it's some really beautiful habitats, that's for sure.
It's unbelievable. It's and I was really lucky to do. Well, when I got there, I was just like a kid in a candy store, so excited, and a lot of the other staff had been there for a while, and maybe a bit over it. So any opportunity for field work, which came up a reasonable amount, I was like, yep, I'll do it. So I got to go to all sorts of remote parts of Central Australia where you wouldn't normally be able to go, because if it's not a cattle station, it's Aboriginal land, which is 100% fine. I love that. And no problems getting permission or anything. But the more remote country where buffel grass hasn't gotten in is, I just remember thinking, I can't believe this is real. It looks like a manicured garden.
Wow.
Like somebody has laid out a gravel pathway and architecturally designed where all the spinifex goes and different trees, and it's just like I don't even like saying garden, because that's how it should look. It's it just looks perfect.
Yeah.
I
need to get out there.
That's what I'm saying.
You get out there. Yeah, you need to drive yourself out there in a proper vehicle so you can do it properly. Like it's all good drive down to Uluru and take the Marini loop back through the West Max. I did that many, many times. It's even if that's all you get to do, it's still amazing. Like it will blow your mind the first time you're into that real desert country.
Yeah, next time I go back, I definitely want to go off track a little bit more, see what else I can find while I'm out there. But that was just like an absolute. I think that was just like the taste of the tip of the iceberg. Like that was.
Yeah.
I've been up to the top end as well, and like that was beautiful. I just think I'm just obsessed with that kind of whole arid country right up into Kakadu and all that sort of area. That's just an amazing part of the world.
Yeah, I'd say apart from my little nooks and crannies in Central Australia that I visited, my favourite thing to do was over a couple of days off, was to just take off and drive as far north as I could before I retired. So I'd drive to Mataranka in a day, which is like
that's pretty solid.
900 Ks.
Yeah.
But it's just so exciting. Like I just never had so much energy for it, and because there's no one out there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, comparatively, it's just a one road, and you just have a little look on a map or Google Maps. What's this? So many little unknown bits of national park before you get to Kakadu and stuff like that, and it's the best. You just can't do that quite the same on the East Coast.
Well, you can't because
maybe right up the top, but up the Cape, something like that. But it's not the same. Not that same sort of sense of true isolation.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely out of the city when you can be driving along at 10 o'clock at night and then just turn all your lights off, stop your car, and you stick your head out the window and you look up at the sky and you just go, holy shit.
You can see the Milky Way and everything.
Everything. It's just unreal.
Yeah. Stars are off their head in the centre. I should have done more astrophotography.
That's one thing I want to do out of analysis, a bit astro. So
I was just going to say that you were talking about like what was it, the desert park?
Yeah.
When I started there, I actually got employed as a mammal keeper, which
cool.
I mean, I wasn't into it, to be honest. It was just it was a foot in the door. Because they were like, we'll just take this job and you'll be able to learn or get on to other stuff. And because I applied for a senior keeper role, or what would they call it? Like I think they called it specialist keeper. So I applied. Even though I didn't like it that much, but I applied to be the head of the mammal department.
Yeah.
And I didn't get it, but they said, can you take the role that person left to do the supervisor role? Can you take their old job and work together sort of thing? I was like, yeah, so all good. Anything to get out there was the plan. And then once I got out there, they'd lost a few staff and there might have been some budget issues, and the park had a new director come on literally the same time as me. It was kind of a little bit of a blessing to go through all because it's a government. It was under Parks and Wildlife, government run. So me coming from Symbio, which is basically family run, the hoops and things to jump through was like completely new. I'd barely heard of OH&S. It was now called WHS, and it was pretty full on. But anyway, I got to know the director, which was useful in the later years because we got on. But for the first 6 months I was there, they ended up saying, "Oh, do you know anything about can you work reptiles?" And I was like, "Yeah, bloody hell." can you do birds? And I was like, yeah, I'd rather do birds and reptiles than mammals. And so there was a point for a few months where I would get into work and I'd do part of the bird round, part of the mammal round, and then I'd be on reptiles the rest of the day, which was most of the time just one person for the day. There'd be a couple of days a week where you'd get two of you to do various things, like maybe some elapid stuff, but most of the time it was just a single person, because the collection was not actually massive. It was just really obscure.
Yep.
As you may remember, Luke, like,
Yeah.
probably not so obscure now, nearly 10 years later, but in 2012, like, yeah, I was blown away with Airless Dragons and Repticulture, mollusks, of course, Delmers. Like, I never kept any of that stuff. The Airless Dragons, we had a curl snake for ages, desert death adders, and everything was not full bioactive, but sort of extreme naturalistic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so fun.
That was one thing that I definitely noticed, is all the enclosures out there were really nicely set up. And the animals that were there had some pretty decent space for them as well. Like, it was, the Gillen's monitor enclosure that was there was way bigger than, I think from memory, it was bigger than what most of my enclosures are. And it was a pretty decent size with like proper mulga branches and stuff like that in there too, which just made it all that more authentic.
And it just made it so fun. Like, that's how I'd always kept stuff. There was a brief period where I was keeping snakes on paper just because I started acquiring a few, as many people do. In my old job, we had racks. Like, it was a brand new technology at the time, and they have their place, but it was never my focus. Like, I always sort of wanted to move away if I could, and always wanted to keep things as natural as possible. But there was a period where I think people were maybe a bit afraid to put, real logs or real sand or real this, real that in enclosures, worrying about introducing pests or something, just something going wrong.
I still think a lot of people are in some way.
Yeah, totally. I get people that have got gigantic collections now.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. But I guess once I left Sydney and I moved everything on, and then when I moved to the NT, I didn't keep anything privately in the NT. I could have, but there wasn't exactly many people sort of doing it.
Yeah.
But once I left, came back to Sydney, I didn't even really want to keep anything, but I just couldn't resist. But I'd been seeing people like Luke and Matt Somerville and a few others, Cooper, who I've chatted to a few times. Bioactive is such a massive thing now. And it's like, yes, this is amazing. Like,
it's good to see. It's really good to see.
I'm 100% all about that. Like, I think it's one of the things we talk about, that I've been a professional full-time reptile keeper for like 16 years, and all I keep is a pair of mountain dragons in a bioactive. That's it. And I love it.
Why not though? Like, that's something that's, even though they're such a common dragon out in the bush, probably up your way, at the same time, like, if you can give them something that just looks and mimics nature, like, it's still a cool little animal to have. Sorry to all the listeners at home too. If you can hear that buzz going off, that's me sending a whole bunch of shots from the Alice Spring Desert Park to the little chat that I've got going with Cam and Jason privately as well, just so I can give Jason a little bit of an update as to some of the stuff that was in the actual park, and also probably refresh Cam's memory as well of a few things that were there. Just a few little snips that I took while I was there.
Making me tear up looking at that desert death adder.
Man, that's unreal.
Yeah, this desert park was phenomenal, though. I really did like how they incorporated the plants into everything, and how they had, like, you'd have like an animal enclosure, and you'd have the animals standard sort of information on the animal, but then just beside it there'd be all these ones for the plants as well, and it was kind of a good merging point for everything, because at the end of the day, even in a bioactive enclosure, just to kind of bring it full circle, like that's your plants, your bugs, your soils, everything has to kind of work together, and that's the exact same as what the desert park had in these sorts of enclosures, was just trying to mimic nature in their finest.
And I think if I ever got the chance to go back, which people ask me and say, "Oh, would you go back?" 100%, 100% would go back. But I think that would be something I would try to get true bioactive going. I think it would be quite difficult with the way that we tried to because we're trying to display things naturally, but also really, really aesthetically pleasing. Which is a big part of the desert park. It's like, as you would see, just walking around the grounds, like it's a botanic garden. So it's probably not manicured to most people, but it's manicured if you know what things look like out in the actual scrub and out in the dunes. So I think it would be a challenge, but that would be something I would love to try, is doing bioactive there. But doing bioactive anywhere is really one of my main interests in the sort of hobby these days. Because arid would certainly be challenging. I mean, it's challenging enough as it is, but arid would certainly be challenging.
Yep. That's something that I'm learning, is like the rainforest side of things. That's reasonably achievable in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But starting to go in.
I'm right next to my my mountain dragons.
Oh yeah.
That's all I've got. And that's just like a secondhand. I think it's 5-foot fish tank off Gumtree. Came with a stand. I just bought like this LED panel light from Bunnings.
Yep.
Then got one of those clip onto the corner mercury vapor, and that's all I've got in there. And then it's just like local plants, local poas, dianellas, maidenhair, little dwarf, bird's nest. I haven't pulled anything out of the bush, by the way, but just from local nurseries, and I love it. It's my favourite thing, even though it seems boring that it's like just over the road is the exact same thing, but I get a massive kick out of it, and the dragons love it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like, a lot of people thought I was crazy for keeping common eastern froglets at home, but
yeah,
I still just enjoyed hearing the call from them, and
that's train spotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that burnt me out on them was the fact that they just eat such small food.
Oh,
Otherwise,
yeah.
I'd still have them.
Killer. Yeah. Yeah. The Mounties actually bred last season. I mean, what did I expect? I bought 2 sort of maybe 12-month-old animals when I first moved to New South Wales off someone I didn't know, and one died fairly quick. They were tiny. One I kept going, all good. Turned out some months later could tell he was a male, so I just put the word out, and anyone got a female they don't want, and the bloke was like, "Yeah, I do actually, and I want to move her on." Chucked her in, and they bred. She dropped 2 clutches.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I like to think it was because of how good the enclosure was, but probably not. Probably just good timing. But this was lockdown was sort of starting to happen then, and I was like, shit, how am I going to feed a baby mountain dragon? Like, they're small enough as it was. So I tried to get a woody colony going, and I'm sure many people have done it. It takes a little while to get it going, like, unless you're buy like an already running colony, and I was like, shit, like I'm just not going to have enough food for these guys, and I tried 2 different incubation methods. One, I had the girl just lay them however she wanted in sand in a tub, and I just tried to keep it wet. And to be honest, I wasn't really paying that much attention to it, and I lost that one, but it was probably a blessing. And then the other ones I just incubated over water, room temperature. But you probably remember that year was a crazy hot summer.
Yeah,
2019, I guess it was. And I reckon I got a few too many spikes, and only got 2 that were really good. One didn't make it, and I've ended up with one it would be a year now that he's still going, and now I have a cranking woody colony, so I'm ready to go. But it was fun watching them, because I saw behaviours I've never seen before, like the female lifting her tail up as a sort of piss off, leave me alone, because the male was pretty ravenous. Good fun. Great species.
Typical male. So I have to just kind of go back and touch on a little bit. When you were out at Alice, did you do much herping? And if so, like, what were some kind of stellar species that you found?
Yeah, lots of people ask me that, and I feel like sometimes I let them down with, sort of not cleaning up everything. But I did all right.
Me feel better.
Yeah, well, I think you want to know. I did get some gillons.
Killing me.
Probably the best one was going to work, and it's a pretty big sort of premises, the desert park, you might remember, but there's a whole sort of greater site that's not public access around it, and I was walking along there on the way to work and saw something on a fence. What's that? Because it's like when you're herping for a long time, you got that that search image in your head, so you see shapes, and I'm actually colorblind, so I do much better with that. Went up, and there was a Gillens just sitting on a fence, and it was easy as.
I think I'll just walk out of this now, I think.
But I like I said earlier, I sort of dipped in and out of herping when I was there for 7 years, and I wasn't herping constantly. I wish I was now, but that's maybe not realistic. But yeah, some of the highlights would be all the different specky Mangdani. Never get sick of seeing them. Seen some just crazy looking Western Browns, beautiful mulgars, beautiful bredeli. Like seeing bredeli in the bush is way different to captive ones, as most people would say once they've seen the wild ones, like fluoro orange. Desert death adders, it's always good. Usually when you got desert death adders, you get amia. Amia are amazing to see in the wild, and sometimes you could see half a dozen pretty easily in a pretty short space.
So quick.
They're quick.
They're quick.
Yeah.
I thought it was a rat when I found the one that I found up there.
Cranky.
What the hell is that thing going across the road? I
got a
had to
good
chase
bite
him down.
too.
Yeah. What else? Levis and heaps of Parentes and Ackies and Tristis. I think I lived in probably half a dozen different houses in my time there, but not like 3 or 4 houses when I was there, and I think I had Tristis in 3 different houses in the roof. Which was just pretty normal. I had other friends and they'd be like, "Oh, I've seen a snake in my roof." I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a tristis." Yeah, they're very common in town. But our central blueies was awesome to see. First central bluey was mad. Night skinks, inland velvets, the variation in them, amazing to see. Cool to see Luricha, the Marini velvet. I actually didn't know at the time. I think it was prior to 2016 that I think they were describing 2016. I think I saw it like 2 years before that, so didn't actually know. So that was cool. Centralian bandy was good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you get helmeted geckos while you're out there?
Yes. Helmeted and sandplane geckos were nice. I always wanted to see thick-tailed geckos out there because apparently there was some getting around out there, like some people had seen them years before, but I never got one. That would have been cool. Like I regret not having a better crack at taipans while I was out there because I knew where temporalis are, like knew it relatively well, but just didn't put the time in for that, or inlands. I had a couple of goes at inlands, but it was more like I was driving to Sydney or something, and I'd camp out there, and it didn't really bother me. Like traveling through any of those areas is awesome, no matter what. But the living out there really got me sort of cemented on birds as well. It's not quite the same, but seeing stuff like grey falcons and black falcons and grass wrens and even stuff like zebra finches and budgies and cockatiels, like budgies in those like murmuration swarm flocks of like 5,000-10,000. That was they were some highlights.
I definitely noted out a little bit because like I've owned budgies for probably the last 10 years or so now, and been kind of on and off with cockatiels, and being able to see both of those species in the wild was something that I've never experienced before, and being able to see that out there was absolutely cool. And even just like the cockatoo species and stuff that are out there, like I got to see some black cockatoos and
the red tails and the pink cockies. Pink cockatoos, so good, so cool to see them. Burke's parrots and stuff like that.
I got to see a ringneck as well, the Aussie ringneck or whatever. I got to see one Australian of those up on that was like the Memorial Hill or whatever in Alice. There was one playing around in the tree up there. And I was like, I've never seen one of these. That's so cool.
Yeah, they love it. They're a menace in the mall, in cafes. They grab sugar packets.
Actually, I think I've seen a video of that actually.
But so some. Oh, and I got Womas, of course, but talk about that later.
Oh, we'll save the good bits to the end.
But it was a hard decision to leave Alice Springs.
I bet. But what was the kind of like catalyst that made you do so?
Basically had a kid is probably the simplest way to explain it, which was totally planned and everything. Like it was all good. It was a particularly hot summer, and summers are always hot there, but it was pretty full on, like having a kid, and more for my wife, to be honest. That she could almost not leave the house because my daughter was born in November, so it was hard work to want to get out of the house and go for a walk or something. Like she'd get my daughter get a heat rash, and it's just tough. Like it can be quite challenging to live there in the middle of summer, and my wife had been in Alice for like 9 years. I'd been there for 7. So she basically gave me a bit of an ultimatum. Like I think it's time to go. And I was like, because the last probably 3 years I was in Alice, I was the senior keeper, so I was the senior keeper working alongside the operations manager. So I was sort of running the collection along with the boss. It was like a dream job, really. I was off the tools if I didn't want to be on the tools, and it was a hard one to give up. But I said, all right, you got to give me a year to sort of get mentally prepared to leave and find a job, because zoo jobs aren't that easy to get, and especially if I'd been in management roles for a long time. So I mean, in some ways actually they might be easier to get, but just zoo jobs in general don't necessarily come up a lot. So we thought about Tassie. We both really liked Tassie. I was hesitant because the herp fauna is just a little low. I think I could do it for a couple of years, but that was holding me back there. It's fair.
Are you getting second glances from your wife right now?
Yeah.
It's not like we couldn't tell. We both got wives as well. We know what it's like.
Probably the better option was looking like Southeast Queensland. Like I had friends in Currumbin, and it possibly would have worked out. But then some people I knew sort of higher up in this new Sydney zoo that I'd heard of, that I'd sort of written off. Like I was like, no way, I don't want to go back to Sydney at all.
Yep.
Don't want to work in a conventional zoo, blah, blah, blah. And then someone I knew sort of got in touch and was like, you should check it out, man. And I had a look and saw Dave Kirshner was heading it up, and like I didn't know him personally at the time, but I knew who he was. Actually, not just as a sort of croc guru and veranded keeper, but also as an artist, really, and an illustrator, because I studied visual arts and a bit of a common interest there. And I got in touch with them, and they sent me a species list, and I was like all native, but like cool stuff. And we just chatted about it and thought, it's actually not that far from the Blue Mountains. So we decided if we can secure somewhere to live in the mountains and I can drive to work, like we can probably do it. And we did. Rented a house sight unseen, and I moved in like May or June, and it was fucking cold. Unfurnished,
especially from Alice.
Unfurnished house, had a blow-up mattress or something like that, and slept on that for weeks, which is fine because I'm used to sleeping in swags a lot. But bitterly cold, no heating in the house, and middle of winter was a bit unfortunate. Not much herping to be done.
Yeah.
But it's ended up being like we both miss Alice a lot, but don't regret it. Like it's been awesome, and Sydney Zoos probably want to talk about that, but don't regret it.
Yeah. So that kind of obviously led into why you moved back into New South Wales itself. What kind of role was it that you actually signed up for? Was it like a full-time head reptile keeper there at Sydney Zoo?
Yeah, so I'm the senior keeper there. Dave's the curator. So it's also called 2IC So Dave, the poor bastard's in the office a lot. So my role is primarily managing our team of 3 reptile keepers. Husbandry, exhibit, design. I suppose a big part of moving there, which I've almost forgotten about now. It's been a couple of years, but there was nothing there. The zoo was not actually, it wasn't even 50% built when I started. So there was a shell of a reptile building. They used a company that built aircraft hangars. So just basically like a big semicircle.
Yep.
And then the exhibit's sort of built inside out of sort of lightweight steel frame. Dave designed all that, did a great job of. So when I started, the shells of the enclosures were all there, but there was no glass, no doors, nothing behind the exhibits, no doors on any of them, and nothing inside. So my first job was to start trying to furnish exhibits, which was, it was a massive job. I think we got something like 30 tons of red sand and maybe more of just soil, because we had 28 exhibits, some bigger than others, some massive, like some the size of a living room, like the Parenti and lace monitor enclosures are the size of a decent lounge room. So it was tons, literally tons of substrate to go in there because we wanted to do it well, and trying to source all those things from around the country was it was massive. Dave's done like a whole presentation, like a whole sort of talk that he's done at a few herp societies now on what that was like. But from my perspective, it was mostly about furnishing everything, and me and Dave both on the same page, like really naturalistic is what we wanted. And then it was, with Dave, but largely up to me because he was always had his hands tied dealing with other stuff, figuring out how to heat everything. So heating a scrub python, which is connected to a bredli, which is connected to a diamond, which is connected to a broadhead, and then a adder. And then exhibits like this big, then to this big, then back to this. It was like every exhibit is custom heated, basically.
Yeah.
Like we sometimes would repeat the methods or equipment used in each, but we've literally used everything that you can think of. So 2,000 watt radiant heaters or even there's a 3,500 watt radiant heater in the Parenti exhibit, just because the exhibits are so big. It's impossible to heat them.
Yeah.
Down to like, 20 watt heat mats for some of the elapids. Only recently I've been trying to convert as much as possible to bioactive. And that's been super challenging because the exhibits are nearly 2 meters tall, even the smallest ones we have. So getting light onto the plants has been the main thing I've been trying to work on. And having things, it just oddly turned out that the elapid exhibits were the best ones to do because they're all Sydney species, and sort of, smaller than some of the others. But like, it doesn't matter what I do, the black snake will trash it, and has to be clean. There's no way around it. But yeah, that's like a whole. You could probably do a whole episode on how we built the zoo, but I do other boring stuff like write SOPs and training plans, but by and large, the 3 keepers, I just watch them do stuff basically. Not because I don't like working with stuff, but my approach is to basically let them do it all, and if they have questions, I'll help or whatever. But I'm as hands off as possible, except for venomous stuff, and so I train the keepers for venomous stuff. And I listened to your episode with Matt the other day, and yeah, it's like really similar, just training and sign-offs, and yeah, maybe some people will never go down that road, but yeah, that's probably my main interest in terms of day-to-day work, is working with the elapids, partly because I have to, but it's also like fun for me, and I like doing it at an older age, like in my late 30s, because I think Matt touched on it somewhat, but I think being confident with the elapids actually makes you slow down and do everything slowly. And so I enjoy I'm no elapid expert, or not an elapid nut or anything like that, but I enjoy training the keepers we have to approach snakes like that. Like, if you be relatively safely gentle, then it's pretty likely that that's how they're going to respond. And so we've got inland tire, eastern brown, common depth adder, tiger, red belly, and broadies all on display. And the easiest snake to work with is the brown, by far.
Wow.
He barely moves. Sometimes, usually can't even pick what's happened, but sometimes I'll open the door and he'll just stand up. And I think that's happened like 3 times in like 2 years.
Wow.
But I mean, obviously I free handle at work. It's a definite no-no, but that would be the one that I'm most comfortable with.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the tiger is an absolute nut, and often hear about tigers being puppies, and yeah, there's heaps are, but then sometimes they're not. It's just always an exception.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're all different.
Yeah, it's the same as my jungle is puppy dog tame, but yet you talk to everybody about jungle pythons and they all say they're nasty.
Yeah. Yeah, so
It's always the way.
I guess another thing, like our sign-off is, we have like general sign-off, but then we have kind of individual sign-off. Like, we don't just sign you off on tiger snakes. We'll sign you off for this tiger snake.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Because he's a hard snake to work with. He's just how it is. Like, he's big and like so strong. Like, I've seen him like flip out of a holding bin. I don't even know how he possibly did it, but yeah. I think tiger snakes are deceptive like that. Extremely strong.
So what's it like having the croc dog as your boss?
Yeah, like, amazing. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to move down there, because, like I was saying earlier, is I think I always think everyone knows more than me. Like, I sometimes feel out of my depth, but I've jumped at the opportunity to work under Dave just because the wealth of knowledge that he has, particularly with crocs and monitors. And my experience with crocs, it was at the time quite limited. And when he said, yeah, we're 100% getting a big salty, I was like, yes. That was a big factor, because that was one of the few things that I hadn't been able to do professionally, was work with a big salty. It just had never come up, never been in the right place. So listen, and he's obviously got a huge amount of theoretical knowledge with crocs, having studied them and written the book. Like he just knows them inside and out, and I thought I knew a bit about crocodiles, but yeah, he's really fun to work with in that way. He can just talk about anything. So basically, the crocs and the monitors are his babies, and I get the elapids and the pythons and the lizards and the frogs. And I just listen to whatever he has to say about crocs and monitors.
I still remember his massive indoor enclosure he had for his lacies.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah.
Well, now his work one is, it's amazing. And we actually ended up getting a pair of bells that we keep outside, which wasn't part of the original plan. But so now we have 2 lace monitor enclosures and a standalone saltwater crocodile enclosure. So, and his office is like this demountable thing, and it's behind the crocodile enclosure. It's just a shame that
prime view.
Yeah, it's just a shame that his window doesn't look out onto it, then he would never leave. But yeah, no, it's good. We've got similar sort of views on zoos and the good things and bad things about them and wildlife in general. So he's good and just pretty laid back.
I've been meaning to come out and have a visit out there. I really got to do it when this lockdown's over. I really want to come out and
same.
It'd be nice to meet you in person and actually just check out the zoo for what it is.
Yeah, for sure. 100% organise that. I haven't even got Mitchell out, and he's had plenty of opportunities, and he still hasn't been out. So
I'll see if I can drag him out. We'll come out together.
Yeah.
So something else that you've got a little bit of a liking to is actually your photography side of things as well, which I know Jason's pretty keen on. He's a bit of a keen photographer himself, but he's sort of getting into the idea of doing some like herp photography and such.
Yeah. So even though I did creative arts and even studied photography at uni, I didn't really get into it until I moved to Alice Springs.
Yeah.
A couple of people were sort of into photography on staff, but nothing crazy. And ended up meeting some professional like bird photographers like Dave Stowe and Henry Cook. Henry Cook's also a mad herper. They came out and did some workshops at Desert Park, and I sort of worked with them with that. And it's like, geez, how's your camera gear? Like, what's going on there? And, oh yeah, it's this and that. And I didn't really know much about it, and they kind of motivated me a bit to. I started thinking like, I live out here and I can't believe I don't do this. Like it's almost a crime. So
yeah.
I actually got into bird photography before taking photos of reptiles. I got like reasonable gear, like I had a 7D Mark II and a 400 mil lens, which I still have. Ended up upgrading to a Canon 5D Mark IV. So like, it's a great camera. But so I spent like probably a couple of years doing heaps of in situ herp stuff with a long lens and just getting to know how to use natural light, because that's mostly how you photograph birds. Not entirely, like plenty of people do flash with birds, which is totally fine, but like, it was more like I just couldn't be bothered and just enjoyed getting out early morning or late arvo anyway. It was good for herps as well. But yeah, it was only in the last couple of years living in Alice, because I don't even think I had Instagram back then, like in 2012. And then in later years, started seeing some crazy herp photography, like some of the guys you've had on, like Ross and Matt. I love Matt's stuff. And started looking into it a bit more. And it's a true crime, really. I didn't even have a softbox. But by the time I left Alice Springs, and I hate it.
All those herbs.
Because I tried pretty hard to get eyes on some things like lomas, and I just hate my photos of them now. It's better than nothing, but
yeah, exactly.
At least you saw
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
You've got pictures of them.
yeah. But I eventually then got a 90mm macro, and I got a and by the way, this is basically all of this stuff is secondhand.
That's the best way to buy stuff, especially camera gear.
Yep. And I got a 17 to 40mm wide angle as well. So it's a bit of a travesty, but by the time I moved to the mountains 2 years ago, I pretty much had everything. And I used the SMDV speed box, the 50. That's pretty big, but it, off camera flash, it's hard to beat. So yeah, probably the last couple of years I've let bird photography go a bit.
Yeah.
And kind of like not working with birds either, like just working with herps, and just the whole moving back here and reconnecting with people I haven't seen for like years and years and years, and meeting new people like you blokes, and like Mitchell, and Jesse Campbell, young fellas like that, Wes, like people way, way younger than me that know way, way more than me and way better at taking photos. It's mad going out with some of those guys and seeing what they come up with.
I love going out with those kind of people though, because it's like, I do that around here as well, where there's a few younger guys than myself, and they're just like walking encyclopedias.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
They're just like, this is a such and such. What you'll be looking at a bug or something like that.
I blame the internet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's unreal. Some of the stuff that they come up with, and you're just like, wow, that's just absolutely flabbergasted me. I've got no idea what that thing is, and yet you're just rattling it off like it's second nature.
Yeah, that's been really inspiring as well. Like, even though I'd seen plenty of stuff growing up in southern Sydney, I may as well have never seen it. Just seeing it again after so many years and trying to photograph them relatively well, or try. It's like a whole new thing, and so I've got my lists, and I try to get a wide and a field guide and an in situ, as many things as I can. I don't know what I'm doing it for, but it's just
tick the boxes.
Gets a bit addictive.
Yeah. I can't wait for this summer.
If we're allowed out of our home station.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the only good thing about being locked down in the Blue Mountains, I have to say.
Well, at least your essential bush tracks are just outside, and you can still go find stuff.
Yeah. So, it's been awesome actually. I've had some good stuff in winter, because I'm more from Alice Springs, more used to herping at night. I still herping at night here, but so much cool stuff to see in the day in the mountains, like blotchies and she oaks and stuff like that. So good.
Yeah, speaking my language.
Yeah.
Sure.
And all that. Got my first black snake for the season today.
Oh, nice.
That was good. It's actually the first one I've seen in the Blue Mountains, so I have like a weird Blue Mountains list. Like, even though I've seen plenty of black snakes and browns and whatnot, I want to see them all in the mountains.
Yep.
It makes sense though, really.
Well, it's just like, for me, it's just fun. Like, otherwise my mind sort of wanders, and kind of need these little projects, and I always see something. Doesn't matter if I don't see the black snake or whatever. I'll try and pick conditions and whatever, and good habitat, and you're almost always going to find something. Doesn't matter to me what it is.
Oh, that's cool. Something you do tend to find a lot of is some of the native orchids up that way. Hey.
Yeah, I cop a fair bit of good-natured flack for that, but yeah, I don't know. I looked at like my files, and I've only been doing that for a year. But it seems like it's been a lot longer. I don't really know what's happened there.
Some stunning orchids, though. Orchids.
Yeah, it's. I think I must have just seen something on Instagram, like scrolled through someone's posted a photo. I was like, what is that? And yeah, once I think something's cool and interesting, and then I just got to find out about it.
Yeah.
So, it's also good to do in winter when herping is a bit quiet. Because I mean, you get orchids all year round, but it's different species will flower in spring, summer, winter, whatever. And it's a lot of the same skills. Like you need good eyes, you need to pick habitat, and then photographing them is actually really similar too. Fair bit easier trying to take a wide angle of a little colony of orchids than it is trying to wide angle a brown snake or something. Both things are good. And like my good mate, Jason Luke, if he ever listens to this, is going to give me shit to the end of time, but they are a good side thing if you're herping and you're not necessarily getting anything.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at finding a consolation prize orchid if it's a slow day.
Oh, that's because there's nothing worse than going out and not finding anything. At least you've got something else you can look for as well.
Yeah,
It's fun.
Yeah, but and I guess a bit like herps, they're not really mainstream, and they're just bloody bizarre. Like the variation is, once you start looking into it, it's crazy. It's a big rabbit hole.
Yeah, definitely. I was just flicking through your Instagram before, and I didn't realize there was, such beautiful orchids out there like that.
Yeah,
Australia.
There's a lot going on out there.
Yeah. Because that's one thing I never really taken notice of. Like, it's a nice flower or something, but I never really taken notice of it previously. I'll probably keep an eye for it now, I think.
Yeah, neither had I. That's what happens, and it's good like hoping as well. Like, there's some common stuff that's relatively easy, but same as hoping. Once you've seen a few of the common things, you want to see the other stuff, and it's hard. It's challenging. Takes a bit of work, a bit of research. Need to have your good eyes on, because what's it similar to? Like some of the times I've spotted like basking she oaks, or basking snakes or whatever. I've had like half a dozen people walk past, like just bushwalkers, and I'm just waiting for them to move so I can come in and go. There's the she oak I got a few weeks ago. It was still in August, still winter, and tiny track. People have been up and down it, and I sort of saw it from a few meters away. I was like, yes, it's amazing. Like, it's pretty uncommon to peep a basking she oak. Anyway, so I took some photos from further back, and still wasn't moving. I even walked past it, not moving. As soon as I put my wide angle lens on and had a slightly closer look, tongue started going, and you do know what I mean.
Yeah. Was that the share photo that you threw up today?
Yeah. I'm a bit.
Photo.
Yeah.
No, thanks. Yeah, they're one of my favorite things to find because they're so variable and challenging. Not always. Like, I don't have heaps of sort of places I know where there's tin or whatever for them. So getting them out basking is super fun. I got another one. It was like March, I guess, last March, and it was completely different looking to the one I got the other day.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
They're a stunning species of lizard, and I think they're completely underrated. I'm actually lucky enough to own one of these guys, but he's entirely patternless, so it looks completely different to this one.
Yeah, the one I saw in March was essentially patternless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine came through a long line of rescues, should I say that? So I think at one point or another he would have been in the bush, but it came through a rescue organisation, then through to me. But yeah, he's a stunning little animal. I absolutely love him. He's actually only just woken up for the year, so
nice.
it's kind of cool to see him again out and about, which was quite nice the other day.
I would be keen on she-oaks.
Yeah, I'll have to send you a photo after this just so you can see what I was talking about. Yeah, native orchids are one of those things that I never definitely take notice of in the bush. And correct me if I'm wrong, Cam, but they're quite small, aren't they, the Australian natives?
Yeah. Some are like helmet orchids are like a few mil off the ground. Some of the smaller species.
Wow.
Ridiculous. They just look like a gum nut or a curled up leaf or something. Yeah. Some of the ones I've tried to find and spend a few hours walking around, and then I find one, I'm like, can't believe I'm doing this. But it's similar. It's the same as surfing. Like you try to find something and you spend all this time, and then you find it, and you're like, it's that great feeling of elation.
That's one thing that I've come to appreciate is not necessarily. I can't say that I've found orchids yet, but I definitely am starting to appreciate the native flowers and stuff when they come through season and stuff like that around this area, and you can kind of really tell when different seasons are on. And you can see different coloured flowers popping up, and
you'll find one
in the summer or whatever.
You'll find some now.
Yeah,
hopefully,
I'll probably
it's in your head now, so you won't be able to help it.
Yeah, you'll be getting a lot of messages if I do. What the hell is this thing? Is this an orchid?
Yeah.
More books to collect, mate.
Yeah, I know. I've only just started collecting mammal books, and now I'm going to have to collect flower books as well, or orchid books. There you go.
Yeah.
So, do you kind of have any tips? Because Jason and I are obviously busting at the seams to get out of this lockdown and come for a walk wherever the hell we're allowed to walk. Do you have any sort of like tips for the Blue Mountains at all that you can give away publicly, if that makes sense?
I mean, there'd be a few places that I reckon most people in the country know about in the mountains, and I'm not going to be the one to broadcast them, even though everyone probably knows them. But I'll definitely let you know. I think, there'd be plenty of people that know a lot more than me about the mountains, but I've found a few things I've found even in summer, the temps drop really quicker than, say, on the coast. Doesn't always mean that you're not going to get anything. I've found opening in the day in the mountains is sometimes just as good. I've probably seen as much in the day as I've seen at night, depending on what you're looking for. Rain is same as probably most places, but rain is usually extremely useful. So if you get a big rainy day and the next day is sunny, like 100% go out, you get something. I've seen at least half a dozen mustard bellies just in the sort of 2 years I've been here, and only one of them was one I flipped. All the others have been either out cruising around or basking. And then if you can pick those days, whether it's mustards or copperheads, tigers, whatever. The only sort of bigger lapid I haven't seen up here is Eastern Brown and Death Adder, actually. Death Adder is Death Adder is like a monkey on my back. I've seen Death Adders, but not in the mountains yet.
They are there though, aren't they?
Oh yeah, 100%. I just don't want to road cruise the really well-known road for them. I want to get them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I guess like most things, conditions is a big one. I also think luck is a big one, but good thing about the mountains is like just so many fire trails and stuff I've got. Like if I want to see, a couple of weeks ago I got a blotchy, and I'd had another one a few months earlier. Because the mountains is quite big and the habitat changes, you have to pick the habitat for the species. So, like most people know, you're not going to get blotches in the wild mountains, but you get to a certain point, like maybe sort of Wentworth Falls sort of area, you'll even see the habitat changes. So, find some fire trails, of which there is just almost endless fire trails in the mountains, and you either shoot off, like there's always goat tracks. That's basically what I do. Just try to pick the right time, and then if I'm allowed, my wife doesn't mind, spend the next few hours. Like I've had such a good time in the mountains. Blotchies are so fun. Sheaks, copperheads, had a few tigers, pink tongues. It's just, to be honest, the other thing is, I do think luck is important, but I think you make your own luck in the sense that people that are seeing a lot of stuff, they're out a lot.
Yeah.
So the more you're out there, the more you're going to see. I don't think I have any better luck or better skill than anyone else. It's just getting out as often as I can. And I think you just get better and better at it. Especially, I can't remember what the term is, but it's like a thing that your brain gets where it gets used to picking up certain images, like say the silhouette or color or whatever. And like anyone that's been herping for a few years, everyone has that, and it just gets better the more you do it.
Yeah.
The old saying of practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's the same with frogging. Like I'm an absolute frog tragic, and they're Blue Mountains tree frogs are definitely here. I can confirm that. They're although people seem to say they're not the nicest population here compared to some of the other areas where you find them, but I don't know about that.
That's subjective.
I dispute that.
It's all subjective.
They're one of those species that I really adore, actually, because I did own some for a short number of years, and they're
so nice. Such a nice looking frog.
They're actually up there with one of my biggest regrets of getting rid of. So it's kind of like a spur of the moment thing where I got rid of them, and that's up there with like things like the Centralian knobtails and stuff like that, where I was just like, shouldn't have done that. That was spur of the moment decision that I'll probably find it really hard to get animals like that back. But they're such a beautiful frog.
Loves Tropa. They're like top 5 for me.
They're really high for me. I don't know why. I think just their pattern is so interesting, and they've got a really nice call to them as well. Like they're a solid little frog as well, so they're not like super small and finicky. It's similar sort of size to a Perrons or something like that. So
agree.
I'm slowly turning into a frog nut.
Jason's about to get some Perrons off another one of my mates.
Frogs are good for photography as well. I mean, I'm not like 100% in situ. I try or as much as I can, but frogs are often really good for in situ. I've found if you're sort of quiet and keep your lights off them as much as you can. Like if I find something, I'll find it and go, yep, there it is. Take my light off, try to get everything set up, come back, light on for just like a second, and then off again.
Yep.
And because I love trying to not trying to avoid blowing out the pupils if I can.
Yeah. Yep.
It's hard. Like some species seem to be harder than others. Some are way more sensitive, but that's always my aim. And I mean, it's just better for the frog anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not something I never actually thought of. Blowing out the pupils.
Well, every frog photo you see, they've always got those massive, dinner plates on, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun challenge.
Have you actually seen any sort of like issues or anything in any of the wild frogs up that way at all? Because there's that kind of new wave of, I don't know if it's chytrid or what it is getting around that's kind of knocking a few frogs off the board essentially along New South Wales. So
Totally heard about it. Do a bit of casual work with Frog ID. Not at the moment, but when the activity picks up, I did some casual stuff with them last season. It's to be honest, I haven't been out obviously frogging that much, but I'm basically ready to go. I reckon in the next week or so to start heading out and see what's going on. But I haven't personally heard about anything in the mountains, which is good. There's a fair bit in Western Sydney, which is a massive shame. Because Cerulean still persists in Western Sydney, and it'd be a real shame to sort of lose those pockets where they're still doing all right. I've seen chytrid a few times, and I don't know, but certainly could be, because it can creep in when temperatures drop. But why this season? I don't. Disturbing to say the least.
Definitely.
Yeah. We're kind of hunting around for some sort of frog expert at the moment to try to come on and have a bit of a chat about this sort of stuff as well, because it is something that interests both Jason and I. And, obviously with who was it that sent out the email? Well, that was National Parks, I think, that sent out the email to all frog keepers. I don't know if you got that yet, Jace, but it's basically to say that if you had anything weird pop up in your captive frog populations, to try to report it and see if they can be sent off for research, essentially. So
right.
Something a little bit disturbing out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, on a less sinister term, I think we kind of have to touch on that Woma python photo that you took, because that's one of the species that I really wanted to knock on the head out west and see. But can you kind of just elaborate on a few stories about the Woma pythons you got to see out that way?
I saw a few. Certainly happy with that. I didn't, like I said, I was sort of not constantly herping for 7 years. Would have seen a lot more if I was. But probably I've got one that was very memorable. It was one of the times where I decided to try and drive up to Mataranka and see some stuff up there. At the time, I'd never seen a wild frillneck. Crazy to think about that now, but that was one of the things I just randomly decided I just want to see frillnecks and I want to see womas, and I'm just going to go out for the next few days and basically stay awake for a long time and see what I can find. So drove to Mataranka from Alice, got some big storms up there. I think it was December. So got some big storms. I wasn't that worried because driving up that way, the way the country changes from Alice and then up to Tennant Creek starts changing a little bit, and then up to Elliot it starts getting more tropical, and then into Mataranka it's pretty tropical by that stage. Camped up there, had a massive storm. My tent completely flooded, had a hole in it that I wasn't aware of, because usually in Central Australia it doesn't rain and don't usually take your tent. But then the next day sort of slow cruise back to Alice, planning on doing a bit of it at night. Got a frilly on the way out, got a Mataranka, so that was good. And at some stage, I'm not even really 100% sure where I was, but driving at pitch black, no lights, obviously, out that way.
Yep.
I should say that on my way up, I had a dead-on-road Woma on the way up. That was my first Woma ever.
Yeah.
Which, as you can imagine, for anyone that's never seen a Woma, to get a roadkill one is devastating.
Been there.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sort of encouraging in a way. Anyway.
All the more reason to go back.
Yeah. So driving back in the dark, no lights, obviously. Then I nearly sort of ran into these people that were walking along the side of the road, group of 3 people, and this was like proper nowhere, like not near Tennant Creek or Elliot or whatever. And I looked in my rear view and they were like waiting, and I was like, this was, I don't know what time, it could have been 2 a.m. It was proper late, and so I stopped, and this local family from a community somewhere, and they're like, oh, our car broke down, can you drive us into our community? And I was like, yeah, no worries. So I was driving along and I thought, I'm going to see a Woma now, and I'm going to feel bad because I'm not going to want to stop and I'm going to miss it. Like, I'm just going to have to let it go. I didn't. Drove them into their community. I'm real thankful. But yeah, cool. It's my good deed. Pulled back out onto the bitumen, started driving. Maybe 10 minutes later, Woma, middle of the road. Stopped
It's
the
like
car.
it was meant to be.
Yeah, 100%. That was my karma. Stopped the car in the middle of the road, as you do out there, because there's really no one driving. Sort of looked out my window. I was like, oh yeah, he's there. No worries. Grabbed my camera, grabbed a torch, got out, and he was just disappearing off the side of the other side of the road. I was like, yeah, no worries. Just sort of moseyed on over, lost him. Completely lost it. Like, who is the python off the side of the road? And it wasn't like super dense grass or scrub, or I just couldn't believe it. I spent a good 10 minutes, 15 minutes walking around, backtracking. Has he gone under the car? I haven't seen it. Like, just couldn't believe it. Was not very happy with myself. Felt like a massive failure for that. I can only imagine it. There was a hole somewhere, and he's gone down a hole, and I just didn't see it. So I got back in the car and I thought, oh, it's all good. I saw a live Woma. I'm happy with that. Kept driving. I was pretty much like, oh yeah, that'll do. Driving, 5 minutes later, got another one.
Wow.
How lucky is that?
I went, all right, you're not disappearing. But yeah, this one didn't go anywhere. Just and that's happened with some of the others I've seen. They're just never had one be super cranky with me. Not that I sort of asked for it really, but yeah, just cruised off the side of the road, got some photos. Certainly not photos I'm happy with, so have to go back. But yeah, that was a crazy sort of seeing 3 in kind of 24 hours was pretty good. I'll probably never be able to do that again.
I don't think most people have done that. That's a pretty good feat.
Well, to be fair, one was dead, but we'll say.
Even still.
2 in the space of 10 minutes, though. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I reckon that's pretty much unheard of, to be quite honest.
I probably would have called it a night after losing the first one, I reckon.
I did. I had. Totally called it. Just went, God, Jesus, how did I? That's all right. I've seen one. I'll just get going now. And thanks. I got a bunch of other stuff that later. Like, I ended up getting home, well, many hours later than planned. I had to work, so, but it was worth it. Like, saw It's just one of those nights, like bit of a storm around, and Centralian blues are out, night skinks are out, bulk browns and stimmies and geckos, and, snapping frogs and knife-footed frogs. It was one of the best nights I've ever had, I'd say.
It's always good when they're at a night like that. That was something that really amazed me, and I know it's pretty common now, but like the fact that those blue tongues come out so late at night.
Yeah, this was like middle of the night. It was hot.
Wow.
It was nice and hot. But
Yeah.
the other, I actually didn't see many Centralian blues. I think I only saw 2 or 3, but that was the only one I saw in the middle of the night. The others were sort of dusk, like still light, just getting dark.
Out of the blueies that I saw in the NT, I saw one western in the morning basking, then one western at about 10:30 at night, and the other 2 Centralian blueies, I saw one at about 10:30, and I think the other one was close to 1 a.m. So it was,
I'd always heard about them when I first moved out there, and people talk about them. Centralian blueies. I'd always heard dusk, like going into night, was the time. But yeah, they were few and far between for me. And I never got a western.
Oh, right. I feel lucky now. That almost makes up for the gill and eye on the fence post at your work. Almost.
Yeah.
Not even close, to be honest, but I'll take it. Yeah, no, I was pretty lucky to get those guys there. Actually, I found a little Centralian bluey. He would have been all of like maybe 12 centimeters long. He was running around with a gecko in his mouth, so it was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was quite happy.
Spectacular at that size.
I couldn't get over how quick he was. I thought he was a gecko at first because I was like, oh, maybe he's just a big knobtail or something like that, and he was scurrying off the road. But
they're a funny shape.
Yeah. And he was hard to kind of stop moving essentially because he would just take off one way, go the next. Like he was just so erratic.
Yeah,
I couldn't keep him still. Anyway,
blue tongues are the worst.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything else that you want to touch on at all tonight, or are you? This has been a pretty awesome episode of just being able to sit back and listen to these stories.
Oh, no, so all I want to do is go and herp now.
I'm stinging, absolutely stinging.
Oh, I've got a diffuser coming in the mail.
Nice.
At least you're getting prepared.
I'm ready to go.
It's warming up too. I think it's supposed to be 25 at some point this week.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like 28, I think, one day as well, 26 or something silly.
This weekend I've seen 26. I think there's a few people excited for that.
Yeah, hopefully the frogs start croaking down the road, so I might have to go for a walk and take the camera down there and try it out.
Yeah, I'm keen.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be moving animals next week, but maybe I might need to stay up a night or 2 or something and just move animals later in the day and, go and see if I can find my death adder for the season.
Oh, and then rub it in. I still haven't seen a death adder yet, so.
It'll take me 30 goes to get one here.
Yeah.
That's nearly, maybe, I'd say, definitely top snake for me.
They're probably my favourite leopard
season.
Death adders.
Do they get the red and the grey morphs up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you reckon there's like sort of like a percentage as to which one's more common?
In the mountains?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think it's, I'm probably going to do a bit of snake catching with a colleague up here for the season. So be interesting to see. But in terms of what I've seen other people get and ID stuff, it seems pretty even. Yeah, grey and red.
Over this way, it's apparently kind of like 75% greys, 25% reds on average.
Yeah.
My experience has been very little compared to others, but it's been about 50-50.
Yeah. It seemed, I haven't looked into it, but just from what you see people are typically getting, seems reasonably even for this sort of general Greater Sydney area.
Yeah. Last year was the first year I got greys though, so that was pretty cool.
True. Yeah, I've only seen grey. Haven't seen red yet.
Yeah, it's been pretty lucky to see the reds first up. All right, guys. Well, thanks, Cams, for coming on and chatting reptiles with us. This has been absolutely awesome to just kind of kick back and have a drink and listen to all your awesome stories about, all these wildlife parks and bits and pieces that you've worked at as well. This is
thanks.
A pretty fun evening.
Thanks, Heath, for having us.
That's great.
Great fun to chat about it.
Anytime, dude. As you said, it's kind of like-minded reptile folk. So this sort of stuff, Jason and I just love because we can kind of just kick back and listen to all these awesome stories and really just enjoy it.
And then you look at the clock and you're like, God, it's been 2 hours. Where did that go?
Yeah, man.
Thank you, guys. And guys, if you want to find Cam on Instagram, you can actually find him under Cam Candy Wildlife. And I really recommend going and checking out his photography as well. He's got some really awesome photos up there as we've been kind of discussing. And you might see a few orchids or two, but, the reptiles definitely make up for it. All right, guys. So we'd like to say a massive thank you to Eric and Owen and the rest of the NPR crew for having us. If you'd like to contact them, it's best to find them at moreliapythonradio.net and email them at info@moreliapythonradio.net. As far as contacting us in our social media platforms, you can email us at australianherpetoculture@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Make sure to check out our Teespring store for podcast merch. Link is on the Facebook page. To see more of what Jason is doing, make sure to follow him on Facebook and Instagram at The Gecko Effect. For myself, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Patreon and Teespring under Beach of Scaly Beasts. We'd hope to have you back next week for another episode of the Australian Herpetoculture Podcast. Good night, guys.